Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to IRX Engage. I'm delighted today to be joined by Steve Davies, who's Chief Operating Officer at Eve Sleep. Steve's been at Eve for almost 4 years, so I believe has seen the brand go through a lot of changes. Is that right, Steve?
Indeed it is.
His background is in the logistics and operations side of e-commerce, so he's a real expert and the voice of authority when it comes to today's topic, disruption through delivery, how delivery pivoted CX for Eve Sleep customers. So on that note, Steve, over to you.
Thank you very much, Louise, and thank you everyone for joining today. So in this webinar, I wanted to touch on the experience I've had at Eve Sleep and how we've leveraged delivery to really improve and disrupt the customer experience over what has been, for all of us in operations, a very difficult and interesting time over the past few years. So across the webinar today, I want to start with explaining a bit about Eve Sleep, who we are and what we do. And then I wanted to touch kind of at a high level on the journey of Eve so far. So how have we gone from our founding moment 7 years ago through to where we are today? And what that has meant as we've gone through, significant growth, but then also having to repivot and make sure our operations and logistics is in the right setup to be able to scale the business accordingly. And when it comes to building a sustainable business in operations, final mile has become so important. So really what I want to talk about is how we have approached final mile and the logistics setup, what the challenges we faced when I joined, and then what kind of overhaul we've done and what benefits that's brought to the business. And then finally, briefly at the end, I want to touch on what's next. So we've all gone through significant periods of change in logistics and courier partners over the last few years, but the change haven't stopped. And always the exciting thing about logistics is that there's another innovation and another next step. And it's what are Eve focusing on with our courier partners to continue to make that a competitive benchmark for our customers when considering where to purchase. So moving on and explaining a little bit more about myself. So I'm Steve, as you've heard, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Eve Sleep. I've been at Eve for just under 4 years, and I have accountability for the end-to-end supply chain, bringing all of our products from our warehouses and our factories, both in the UK and abroad, all the way to our warehouses and then onto the final mile. I also have accountability for product quality and returns. So this is an area it's really important to have reporting into me because actually there's a lot of overlap between product quality data and returns data with the delivery experience. And it's really a rich source of data to know, are we getting it right? And then the other part of the business that reports into me is customer support. And this is a really critical part. So for our customer support function, over 50% of our contacts are related to delivery or returns. So it's a really rich mine of data where I can look at what are we getting right and indeed wrong, what are customers really wanting, and what are the friction points in the journey. And that's, for me and what I tell my teams all the time is I create the problem sometimes in operations, and then I actually solve it in customer support and loop it back into operations to go, how do we evolve and develop to make sure we're really creating a compelling offering for our customers. And then touching briefly on my prior experience, so before Eve Sleep, I spent 4 years in the operations leadership team at Wayfair in Europe. It was my job there to work with thousands of suppliers across Europe and help them to kind of develop best-in-class dropship capabilities from everything from garden planters all the way to assembled wardrobes. So I've been to hundreds of warehouses, everything from pretty much garden sheds with a standing trailer at the end of them, all the way through to fully automated warehouses. And it's amazing to see that actually what delivers a customer experience it might not be what you think it will be as a physical footprint. So there's a lot of people working on this, and it's been incredibly exciting to bring that learning to Eve Sleep. Oh, and then this is a meet the team slide. So you won't be able to tell at all that this is a slightly staged photo from the photographer that we had in the warehouse last week. But this is a good section of my Eve operations and quality team in the warehouse last week. And I have to say, I'm incredibly lucky here at Eve to have an ops team that are so passionate about the customer experience and logistics. And that means not just being passionate about mining the data, understanding what the trends are, but also getting on the ground with our couriers and our warehouse partners. And this is, as is our main warehouse in the Midlands last week. And even then last week, we were looking at how do we optimize the pick flow to get the orders out to the trucks on time when they're coming in? How do we optimize the scan to truck process so we're reducing lost in transits? And there's just so much you can do as an ops team to get on the ground, working with your warehouse and courier partners, and sharing not just our insights on what the customer friction points are and kind of how tech can solve those problems, but also listening to the warehouse teams and the courier partners and going, what can we do to improve the process? Yes, and hopefully my team are fine for me having this photo in the webinar at this stage. I'll warn them, of course, after it goes. So moving on to Eve Sleep and who Eve Sleep, kind of what our journey has been so far. So we were founded over 7 years ago by a group of founders who were really passionate about delivering the perfect sleep for our customers. And that premise was built on the perfect mattress, the perfect pillows. We had the perfect version of every product. And over the years, what we've realized is there's no such thing, sadly, as the perfect product to solve your sleep needs. And we've really expanded our knowledge of sleep wellness, and our customer needs, and now have a much wider product portfolio. So we have everything from premium hybrid mattresses all the way through to our lighter mattress and essential mattresses. And also, we've really gone from a mattress company, as it were, into the stages of sleep wellness. So, the mattress itself only solves so much of your sleep problems. If you consider the fact that actually sleep can also be, you can have challenges with sleep through to your routine, your mental health, it can be your environment. So we've actually started to expand the products that solve more of those needs and requirements as well, which has also led to more logistics challenges on delivering those to the end customer. We are very much design-led, and our products, so our premium hybrid mattress tops the Which scoreboard for the best mattress in the UK, and we actually have 3 of the top 5 slots with Which in the UK. And that really shows that it's really important to deliver a high-quality product, but therefore backing that up with a high-quality delivery experience. And the other thing about Eve, which is really interesting and challenging, is I'd argue very few retailers have as long a journey and experience with any retailer other than a sleep retailer. So we offer a 1-year trial. So you have a full year to decide whether that mattress is right for you or not. But then you also have a 10-year warranty. And you think about the amount of time a customer is using an Eve product. It's a lot more of your day than most of the products you'll be having, almost, well, your television or your mobile phone perhaps. So it's really important that our quality of support is there, not just from the first delivery experience, but all the way through that lifespan, where actually customers might come back and buy more mattresses, and they want to have a consistent delivery experience. They want to know that Eve is the same high quality company they purchased with 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. And then when they come back, they can experience that again. So the journey so far, and it has been, as Louise mentioned, quite a journey. So when we were founded 7 years ago on the premise of the perfect sleep, we saw huge interest and success in that. And actually, we went public as a business on the AIM Stock Exchange not too long after. As a result of the flotation, there were huge ambitions to scale the business as quickly as possible to really, deliver sleep wellness to as many people as possible across multiple markets. And at one point, we were in up to 15 markets. And what we found was, while that was a hugely exciting time for our journey, this was prior to me joining, it was too much at once. And I personally found it hard to manage the markets we've got at the moment consistently with the challenges we face. So what we actually chose to do several years ago now is to go from all those markets that we were trying to achieve success in simultaneously, and to wind that down into our core markets of the UK, France, and Ireland. And that's allowed us to really focus on getting the basics right. And getting the basics right in a business isn't just about your kind of return on marketing spend. It isn't just about, have you got the brand awareness? It's also about, do you have the fundamentals of customer experience in place? That means, do you have the high quality product? Are you optimizing those return rates? And when you are delivering to a customer, are they feeling that they have that experience that makes them want to come back to you again? And not only that, is it at a scalable cost that means that actually, if you want to grow the business again, and fingers crossed we'll be in 50 markets again at some point, that you can do that in a way that means that it can be successful, it can be sustainable, and it can be consistent. So what have we done in the meantime over the last few years? We've expanded the product range quite significantly. So not only have we expanded the mattress ranges, so everyone, any customer wants to come to us and get a hybrid mattress, a foam mattress, different levels of kind of support, but then they can also get wider sleep wellness products. So pillows, we have multiple ranges of pillows. Bed frames, we have everything from our spindle bed frame all the way down to our minimal bed frame. And then we've actually launched not too far ago a CBD product, which is a very small CBD oil product, which is obviously a very different operational challenge than the large assembled bed frames. So not only have we expanded the product range, but we've also expanded our partnerships and fulfillment methods. So we very much started in a D2C format, so delivering direct to customer when they place an order on the website. Now we have multiple channels. So we have B2B partners that cover, the most recent one is DFS. So now customers can go to several DFS stores in the country and try before they buy. They can purchase from DFS or ourselves. We partner with Next, we partner with Shop Direct. Then we also partner with companies like my prior employer, Wayfair, where they will come in and collect the product that we prepare for them. So when you have these multiple fulfillment methods for your partners, you need to make sure you've got the right system set up and the right logistics operation that can deliver against the proposition. So overall, where are we on that journey? We've very much gone from being a mattress maker all the way through now to really starting that growth into sleep wellness and becoming a sleep specialist over the last 7 years. And one part of that, which is really critical, is not making sure customers lose sleep at night because they don't know where their delivery is. Terrible puns will come throughout the meeting, don't worry. So what were the challenges when I joined Eve Sleep 4 years ago? And this was interesting. So coming from Wayfair with 1,000 suppliers and a dropship setup where we had a number of core couriers that would collect from all these couriers, I came to Eve to a much more simple setup, which was basically one main courier in the UK that collected all of our products. And it was a more limited product set at the time, but we were very aware of the ambition we had to scale our product profile, and we needed a proposition that could support that. So when we moved from just the core mattress through to heavier and bigger mattresses and much heavier bed frames, could be 200 kilograms, this one consolidated small parcel courier was not going to be able to do it. Particularly when you think about the surcharges, you get ADH, additional handling charges, peak season surcharges. It meant that your cost base is very unpredictable. And, particularly with small parcel couriers, in light of the pandemic as well, they're very much focused now on getting more perfect volumized boxes than they are these big IDW, regular dimension and weight products. So we knew we needed to expand beyond that direct relationship with the small parcel courier to fulfill Eve's ambitions. And there were some difficulties scaling up. We knew that customer experience had been impacted, because we actually didn't know the customer experience. So at the time, the data coming from the courier wasn't that great. We hadn't done much of our own deep dive into what's the experience of our customers with our courier service. We also knew that the courier we work with wouldn't be able to support the advanced delivery services beyond just delivering it to the front door of a property that we were looking to achieve. We also had the challenge that we had multiple warehouses, so we were drop shipping from our factory where our mattresses are produced, but then we also were doing kind of more bulk deliveries from our main warehouse, and it meant that we needed a courier partner that could support the expanding product range and supply chain footprint that we were developing. And then we also had the fact that when you're expanding your product profile, we didn't want to get to a point where a customer could, and actually did, order 5 different products and have 4 to 5 different deliveries, because that's not what a customer wants in their mind. They don't want to think, right, I'm going to place my order for a mattress, a bed frame, a pillow, and some bedding, and then get 4 different emails, 4 different texts, different delivery slots across different days. Not only is that terrible for the environment with one order having to go across multiple trucks, it's also bombarding customers' emails. And now in particular, and again, I'm talking 4 years ago, but now customers are spending more time online and placing more orders online. It'll be absolutely chaos to try and keep track of what on earth is that delivery for, and not really knowing is that an Eve Sleep product. And it doesn't live up to our mantra of trying to be frictionless in the customer experience to help people sleep well. And then, as I said, finally here, in terms of the final mile experience, it was really critical for us to find a partner that will be able to help us, scale that experience to become a competitive point of difference. What we know out there is that it's very easy to find a courier that will give you a very cheap rate to get a product to an end customer. But the final mile experience, particularly in large parcel, but we do everything from tiny parcel to very large parcel, it's such a point of contact with the brand, and I'll go into it later, but it's arguably the most impactful touch point that a customer will have with a retailer or a brand. Shopping the website is great and feeling they can easily check out is fantastic, but then if they don't get the experience at the doorstep, or indeed over the threshold, then it's going to really leave a sour taste in the customer's mouth, and it really impacts on your brand credibility. The courier is an extension of yourself, and what we found when I joined Eve was the courier wasn't really an extension of us. And yes, we could have done more to support that, but equally, it's important to find a partner that felt it was in their DNA to be part of our brand. So what were we looking for to overcome these challenges? So we identified a few core kind of pillars that we needed to make sure were possible to achieve with a migration to a new partner. So the first one was a single point of integration. For many people who might be listening to this, they'll be very experienced in the fact that a courier migration, when done directly between you as a retailer and the courier, can take 3 to 6 months. You'd hope it can be done sooner, and many promise it can be done within a few weeks, but it's very rarely the case. Just trying to get the account code set up can be pretty complicated. So we were looking at a single point of integration so that actually when we're working with the couriers and they're updating their APIs and they're updating their configs, that it wasn't us having to change this on multiple fronts at the same time, because you actually have to, therefore, if you do that, have quite a large tech team to support that, who understand APIs, who understand EDI integrations or SFTPs. And it's a high cost to a business, particularly with tech not being the cheapest anymore. It's never been cheap, but it's certainly getting more expensive. And the experts that you need for back-end tech, that is, are becoming scarcer and scarcer because retailers are having them in more in demand. We also needed to look for partners that could give us a wide portfolio of delivery services. So gone are the days where you could just deliver to the front door. That's gone. It's not possible anymore. Customers know what's out there, and I loathe to use this. The analogy we all use is the Amazon effect, and I loathe to use it because I actually think that smaller retailers can actually, as a point of difference, beat Amazon on the final mile experience. However, they have set a standard for communication, for final mile, for queries of where is my order. So actually there is an element here where we wanted to make sure that we can deliver experiences and services that are above and beyond just throwing it to the front door of a customer's house within a 8-hour time slot. And we wanted to upgrade the overall delivery experience for our customers. So that's looking at the time slots they get, it's looking at the emails they get across the journey, it's looking at what happens when the courier turns up and actually engages with the customer. It's making sure that we minimize stuff like split consignment, so only delivering parts of orders. It was looking at having post-delivery NPS surveys so we can then understand how to improve the service, and really focusing on how do we make the drivers an extension of the brand. The other core part for us was the scalable and actually predictable cost base. So as I touched on the prior slide, the one thing I really struggle with in the courier world sometimes is the surcharge logic, and actually going, how many exceptions are there that mean that a courier will say that they delivered 100% on time in full, but all these exceptions actually mean it's more like 90% or 80%, but that's not their problem. And the same thing on cost, which is it's great when the cost is stable for, let's say 7 months of the year, but when the other period of the year, you've got all these surcharges taking effect, that's a real challenge, because it means you actually don't know what your cost is going to be. And that makes it really hard as an operations team and myself as a COO to go and sit with our CMO and our commercial director and actually tell them, hey, these are the margins we'll be aiming for based on the back end costs of the business. And I think that's one thing you can't overlook, which is that as ops leaders in retailers, it's our job to be as predictable and supportive as possible for the front end of our business, the commercial teams who are selling the product. And it's our job, therefore, to find a way to be scalably profitable and to make sure that costs are scalably predictable, so that actually I'm not coming here and, oh, it's double the cost now for the next few months, sorry about that. And they have to redo their promotional plans and all of their pricing logic to account for that. Because as we all know, it's becoming really difficult sometimes to make a profit, particularly when confidence is down, and therefore spending on discretionary categories like mattresses become more challenging. So we've really experienced the benefit, which I'll touch on later, of having a scalable cost base. And then the final thing, and again, this is not exhaustive, but picking on the core components that I was looking for was, advanced performance insights. So depending on the courier you use, you can be very lucky. You can get daily, weekly, or monthly KPI packs. They can be in the courier's favor, of course. And again, touching on those exceptions I talked about previously. But what was really important for me joining the business was finding a partner that would, come hell or high water, good or bad, give me the real view of what's going on in the network. So that's everything from not just customer Trustpilot feedback on the courier pages, but it's also looking at how many split consignments there were. Actually, when we're getting in contact with the courier, I want the courier feeding that back to me to tell me, well, how many contacts did my business have with yours to solve the customer? Never mind the customer getting in touch with them. What's the effort from my business to yours, and how can we improve that? Also having somebody who can talk about, when we have advanced delivery services where customers are paying for delivery, understanding in real time, is that going to be arriving on time or not? So not just looking backwards and going, that was good or bad, but also looking forwards and going, are we actually going to deliver this based on when the scans are coming in? And actually, if there isn't a scan, what do we do to fix that? So that's when I talk about performance insights. It's far beyond just a weekly KPI pack that tells me what happened. It's also going, how can I use data to predict what's going to happen in the future? And that's when the relationship was formed with GFS, Global Freight Solutions. So we did look at multiple couriers, and we did the same kind of assessment on the pillars, going, how complicates the integration, what kind of performance insights can you give me, how do your rate cards work? But what we found was in a market where, as a retailer, we wanted to use multiple couriers to deliver our vast product range or expansive product range, that we wanted that single point of integration. And in that space, GFS came out absolutely on top for us. So we started working with GFS. I say working. When I joined in September 2018, we completed the tender process kind of in the latter half of that year, and we went live in January 2019. So just to give you an idea of speed, all the way from the contract conversations and the rate negotiations, all the way through to go live, it was quite limited time frame. Which my ops director will never forgive me for, but there we go. So why did we pick GFS? So one of the elements is that it remains very easy to scale up and down depending on volumes. E-commerce volumes are hard to predict, and my CFO likes to say on a regular basis that forecasts are either lucky or wrong, and sadly we're more wrong than lucky. So it means, how can we work with a courier partner that could be able to support that and go, oh, you forecasted 5 trucks, we've got 2.5. So how are we going to flex that volume? Which I'll touch on later, and how GFS do that. One of the absolute foundations of Eve Sleep actually is the consolidated deliveries. So this one was really critical to me. So as I mentioned previously, when I joined, it was absolutely possible to have 4 or 5 deliveries for one order. And the environmental impact and customer experience impact of that was one of my red lines. I wanted to fix that very, very quickly. And what GFS has allowed us to do is to be able to, and I'll talk about this later, use their systems, GFS checkout, to develop rules that mean that depending on what a customer puts in their basket, that we can then apply a rule set to that determines which courier that should go with. So it's one delivery at the optimal cost. So not only is that good for us as a business, it's also better for the environment, and it's better for the customer. And it's one thing I'll talk much further on later. And then we've got customer convenience. So touching on the delivery experience piece again, what we found, and I'll talk about the pandemic later, is that for a lot of retailers, speed is really critical. Now, specifically for Eve, we've done a lot of customer research, looking at our own customer base, rather than using some amazing research from Metapack and others, Parcel Lab, etc. But looking at our own customers, because rather than industry data that covers multiple product categories, we wanted to know, when it comes to mattresses, bed frames, pillows, what do customers actually want? And what we found is that convenience is more important than speed. Now, while we can achieve speed with GFS, and we can do next day deliveries if we so wished, if you get up at 3 in the morning, you can have a next day delivery from us. Actually, it's about convenience and the reliability that if I choose a nominated day, for instance, which we have now, and I want to pick a day and we're about to launch morning, evening and time slots in the near future, then actually you're going to get it on that time, and because you're paying a bit more for it, so you do expect it, but actually that the courier and the retailer you're working with have the process set up to make sure it actually happens. So as people are starting to move to more hybrid ways of working, while in the pandemic, nominated services weren't that important anymore for a large part of the population, they are actually becoming more important again, and it's really important to have that consistency. So that's how we ended GFS. So a managed multi-courier service provider who not only had the couriers that we were looking to work with initially, but have consistently evolved their carrier offering to meet our requirements. And that has happened over the last 4 years. So going, okay, you only have X large parcel provider on your books, but actually we want to look at Y, and then they will go and do the legwork for that, do the tendering, the benchmarking, the integration setup, and then bring it back to us. So talking about removing the level of effort from internal business here at Eve Sleep, and that lets us focus on what we do best, which is delivering sleep wellness to the nation, and letting GFS take some of the burden of the tech and operations piece of getting the right couriers in place for us to deliver our products.
Can I just interject here, because we've had a question?
Yeah.
Firstly, how has it changed the relationship you have? So you obviously now have a relationship with GFS, but before you would have had it with lots of other couriers. Is that right? So how's your relationship different now? Yeah. Would you say?
It's built on a different premise. So, and it's a really good question. So when you're working directly with couriers, and I've worked with many couriers in my career, and they all do a fantastic job, but they're working within the confines and the mindset of their own establishment, their own organization. So what can we deliver for you? What can I do within the rate card and the service offering? Whereas when you work with someone like GFS, who's a multi-courier solution, they have a different mindset. They're looking at, well, what's out there on the market? Do we still have the right couriers on our books that can deliver the service we're looking to see? And also, when I work with my GFS account manager, we're talking about what he's seeing with other customers across not just the couriers I'm working with, but others, and going, hey, actually, should we talk about this with the couriers you're working with, or maybe look at moving your volume? So it really helps to see that the relationship comes from more transactional, which is how can the final courier support you to actually a more tactical and strategic conversation, which is, well, what's on the market? Do we need to go and tender? What can we do on the tech side to improve the integrations, et cetera, et cetera. So what I found with GFS is that it's a very different relationship that isn't based on trying to keep you within a courier, but actually trying to deliver the right service to the end customer. And that's not to do a disservice to couriers at all. But I do find the best way to deliver, the highest quality customer experience is to leverage the best of multiple couriers. And that's something that on a one-to-one level, you just can't achieve.
Another question. So someone has just asked, how did you go from from using your one courier to using GFS? Was it an overnight switch, or was it something you did over a process, a week or something like that?
Yes. So I joined Eve September 2018, identified, as we touched on, the challenges of the existing setup and courier integration, and very quickly knew that I didn't want to go into the next calendar year with the same limitations. Eve have gone through a huge transformation journey, and one of the most important parts of that transformation is we've lost a lot less money every year, and we're almost at profitability now as a result of, well, with a large contribution from that from the back end. So after joining 2018, we started the tender process. We had conversation with GFS and multiple couriers. We made the selection of GFS, and we were live with them by January of 2019. So it was a very, very quick process by courier terms and retailer terms, and particularly when you consider that is integrating multiple new couriers via GFS, setting up the accounts, getting the service level correct, understanding the SOPs and getting those documented. So relatively speaking, it was a rapid process, and it's only got quicker since, which is a really powerful part of the relationship that we do have. Now, that's not to say that me rushing that through, and it was rushed, I will admit that, and my ops director, who I'm sure is listening, would agree to that too. And I probably next time would do a more staggered approach. But given the criticality of logistics to the business, I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and make the change and then work through the challenges, which we have done with GFS from such a rapid go live. And of course, 4 years later, those go live challenges no longer exist, I should definitely say at this stage.
Thank you.
I move on to my next slide. Here we go. So what I want to move on to now is how the integration works. So we've just mentioned that it was quite a quick go live, and often the question is, well, how does the tech work to deliver such a quick transformation and to maintain the transformation, and also to underpin the development of new services and offerings to our end customers. So we do leverage quite a bit of the GFS tech suite, as it were, not all of it. So I'll explain which bits we do and don't use at the moment. But the first thing is the GFS they predicate themselves on being courier experts indeed, but tech enabled. So they have a large tech team that are working on the various components of their infrastructure to make sure that it wraps around as an end-to-end solution for retailers like myself, who don't want to kind of do all the heavy lifting in terms of back-end tech and development. So the elements that we use, first of all, we'll look at GFS Selector. So GFS Selector is the kind of the label management offering. So it's the middle box on this slide that sits within my warehouses and factories in the UK. And I've got a factory in the UK that does our drop shipment. So if someone only orders a mattress, it goes directly from the factory to minimize the footprint on the environment and also to minimize the cost. They aren't hugely tech enabled. They were working on spreadsheets before we engaged with GFS, and they've put GFS Selector locally onto their PC in the warehouse, and they take our shipping list every day. They import it into GFS Selector. GFS Selector generate the labels, and they're applied to the products and shipped out on a daily basis with our couriers. So it is that simple. So for our factory that's not very tech enabled, they absolutely can have a localized version of the tech platform, print the labels, and ship and manifest, which generates the customer comms to Eve customers. When I look at my warehouse that has the larger bulk of our stock in the Midlands in the UK, they actually have GFS selected, but in an API setup. So they're having an automatic call off. So at the packing station, when they pick their order and they're scanning that through, then actually the GFS systems are then going, right, here's your order, here's your label coming via API, which of course is more advanced and it suits a warehouse that's working at much higher scale, but it goes to show that you can do localized setups or API integrations, and both can work depending on the requirements of your warehouse, and not just the requirements, the capabilities of your warehouse partners. And I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's using multiple warehouses or factories with different levels of capability. The next piece I'll talk about in the journey is GFS Seeker. So GFS Seeker is the one point of integration, forgive me, between Eve Sleep kind of internal business and GFS. So as mentioned earlier, I look after customer support, and what we've had in the past is customer support having to log into multiple different platforms. If we have random kind of, I can't name couriers, I won't name couriers, random deliveries from one courier versus another, and it's a different password and login, it's a different user interface, etc. With the GFS migration, whatever delivery it is in the UK, you log into Seeker, you put your shipping reference in, so my own reference, or I can put in the consignment number from GFS, and I can see all of the tracking and notes around that. So if there's been an exception, it'll be on there. If I need to request a change or an update to delivery, it's via that platform. And at the other side of GFS is the GFS customer support team. So they have their own team. And they'll respond within 30 minutes to any queries that are coming in within working hours, of course, not at 2 in the morning. And nor are the couriers working at that time in terms of deliveries anyway. But so GFS Seeker is the way that we integrate with GFS customer support, and then they will go as a one-to-many. So we go to GFS, GFS will go to the relevant courier, depending on the shipment, and enact the request that we have. We also use GFS Seeker to submit claims if there are, damage in transit, lost in transit. So it becomes a one-stop shop. And that's really important for me at Eve, because we're a scale-up. So we only have about 40 odd people in the business, and a good chunk of those are in customer support. And what part of being kind of part of the journey to sustainable growth is being able to not grow your revenue and headcount proportionally. So what GFS allows me to do is actually have a consistent and streamlined process for customer support to handle deliveries. So actually, if we did double the volume, it wouldn't be double the effort, because the effort remains the same. Moving on.
Question. Sorry, just sorry to interrupt if that's okay. Just a quick question we just had in here that someone said, so if a customer wants to change the delivery slot, do they, how does that work? They call your customer team, and does your customer team then have to call GFS, or how would that work?
So there's two ways that can happen. So the first way is, depending on which courier it is, the customer could do that directly with the courier. So if the courier offers in-flight redirect, and our small parcel couriers do, then they can do that directly with the courier, and GFS has all the API integrations with all the scan events of the courier, and will feed them back to me to go, hey, your customer that you thought you were delivering on X date is now Y date because they've requested it. However, there are some deliveries where that still isn't possible for in-flight redirect, particularly when you get to large parcel couriers where they're still working, and they are working on it. But therefore, we would put the request in via GFS Seeker. Our customer support team would log that request, and then that request will be handled by GFS customer support through to the courier and fed back to us. So again, it becomes a one-stop shop for us if a customer has requirements, or even to build on your question, if a customer has access information. So you can't put that in an address field on a website going, actually, the postcode doesn't get you here, it gets you 5 miles down the road. They'll send us that in an email, and we can hand that over to via GFS Seeker, so the courier knows, don't use that postcode, take the notes that actually you need to drive, particularly in rural areas, you need to look at this signpost or that castle on the hill, etc. So yeah, it's absolutely possible to do via the GFS platform.
Thank you. And I've got another one. You talked about APIs, and earlier in the slides you talked about tech teams.
Yes.
Did you need to bring on board the tech teams in your business, or do you have tech teams within Eve at the moment, or did you have to bring external people in just to help you integrate this? How difficult was integrating GFS's systems into your business?
So there was very limited incremental effort, by which I mean we have a tech team that look after our ERP, which is NetSuite, and some of the data, the shipping information coming back, we integrate into NetSuite. And then we also use a connector for data called Boomi, and we have a Boomi specialist in our team. But overall, our tech team is for ERP now is 2 people, and we have 1 Boomi specialist, there's 3 people. And no, because GFS do most of the heavy lifting with, they're doing the integrations, the account setups and everything else, all that we need to do is make sure that when we're sending our shipping list down to our warehouses, factories, that they're able to send that over to GFS. So the integration with the retailer is limited. Unless you're an asset-based retailer, then you would have the effort. For us, it was our 3PL warehouse and our factory that had to either install the software, which was half a day, and then it was done and ready to go. So literally half a day on that piece. And then you could ship out. And then for the warehouse with the API integration, it took a couple of weeks to do the test and everything else, but it very quick and simple to do. Now, that's because GFS are keeping up to date with the end courier tech setup. And post-Brexit, etc., this is always evolving and couriers are updating their APIs. But because GFS are doing that, actually for us to just find the endpoint to send to is actually quite simple. So it does remove some of the burden from retailers here.
Brilliant, thank you.
Not a problem. And it is, you don't need dedicated. And the other thing I will say, from my personal experience, and there'll be people out there who may disagree, you don't need huge dedicated tech teams to underpin something like this if you work with a company like GFS, because you can use consultancies that, as there might be a change, you bring them on for a few days to manage that through your systems. So for us, yeah, we have quite a streamlined tech team that can support all of the services we're offering to our customers. And then the other piece on this page I wanted to talk about was GFS checkout. So as I've mentioned about consolidated deliveries and nominated day services, and I'll talk about mattress removal, I believe, in a later slide. We needed to find a way to manifest our delivery capabilities to our customers at the delivery page in a kind of a manageable way. So we use GFS checkout, which is the system that sits on our delivery page in the back end. And depending what a customer puts in their basket, we have rule sets that are run through to go, right, you've got a mattress bed frame, therefore it's this courier and these services are available. It's looking at the customer address and going, what's available via the carrier gazetteer to go, okay, we only deliver there Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, so we can't offer you a Thursday nominated day service. So it's going through all these rule sets on where the customer is, what's in the basket, and then, how do you want to optimize our costs to then present to the customer the available options. And that's a really powerful tool to be able to use live carrier gazetteers to do this as well, rather than promising something that the courier might not actually be able to deliver in the back end. And so that whole piece is on our website. If we want to change the pricing on those services, or the availability by postcode, or any of that kind of minute logic as well, that's all managed within GFS checkout for us. And then all that data is being transmitted then into our systems and then over to our warehouses. So that's how we plan to continue to build our capabilities and delivery services. It's on top of GFS checkout. And then the other piece, which is on kind of data and insights, so we absolutely use GFS's data and insights from that tool, but we also build beyond that, where if we have custom requirements of data that aren't currently available on the platform, we'll get that in addition to GFS to go send us that data on a weekly, daily, monthly cadence. So we're leveraging as much as we can from GFS's data suites as well. Oh, I can't move slides. Give me 1 second. There we go. So that's a lot of talk about the systems. In reality, then, going back to the core premise of why we wanted to move, it was to deliver a better customer experience on a scalable cost base. So how has all of this change benefited the customer, or has it benefited the customer? So I want to reference a few of the key things we've achieved with our new GFS relationship that has been cornerstones of our delivery service. So the first one is introducing a white glove delivery service. So I'll be wary of not referencing the final mile couriers involved, because GFS are multi-courier, so we have used multiple couriers over the time, but we have a really credible and scalable white glove delivery service now that, a majority of our products, without giving you the exact percentage, are kind of large parcel IDW products, so bed frames, mattresses, etc. And they are over the threshold deliveries. And they are the most personal touch point, as I mentioned previously, for a customer. So, very few deliveries do you have the driver crew come to your bedroom. right? I don't know about you, I don't even like my kids being in my bedroom, never mind some driver I've never met and may never meet again in the future. So having the right courier partner, and we've gone through a couple of changes to get there. If you ask my ops director, she'll say I've used every two-man courier in the business, but no, I haven't. But in my time at Eve, we've definitely optimized and pinpointed the right one. That gives us the confidence that we now have the right partner that we trust to go into the customer premise, and that we actually believe will deliver that consistent quality of service. And I'll touch on it when we talk about what the next stages are for us. But for us, that's where the evolution of retail and courier relationships come in. It's how do you make the courier an extension of your brand? So when they're over the threshold, how are they giving guidance to the customer saying, hey, looking at your bed frame, the slat gaps are too wide, and actually this might void your warranty, you might want to get in touch with Eve, or explaining this takes a few hours to inflate and there might be a bit of a smell for a few days, so open the windows, and actually using the driver teams as an extension of your brand. And just to touch on this, we have used a couple of different two-person couriers with GFS, and again, pointed to the fact that migrations are quite simple to do, quite hard to do when it comes to the actual SOPs, the consistency of service on the final mile courier. The change itself was easy and quick to do. We have nominated day deliveries, as I mentioned, so I'll talk later about the stats, but we have a good percentage of our customers using advanced delivery services, and that helps us because for nominated day there is no additional cost to Eve Sleep as a business, but we get the incremental revenue from the customer, so that only helps again to improve our sustainable cost base. Introducing a swap service, so this for me is my proudest part of everything we do here at Eve in logistics at the moment, which is our what we call a swap service, or an old mattress removal service. So one of the biggest friction points for a customer when they're looking to buy a new mattress is getting rid of the old one, which can look a bit tatty, isn't something you really want to be having out in your front garden, because everyone doesn't like people nosing in from the neighbours and going, oh my God, what's that horrible mattress out there for a week waiting for the council to collect, and maybe they don't. And while a lot of retailers have got a solution for this, and often when you buy a mattress from them, you can pick for an alternative courier to collect at a certain time, etc. What we've done is we've focused on sustainability and frictionless journey for the customer, and we've developed a service whereby if a customer buys a mattress from us, no matter what mattress it is, they can select the option at checkout to have their old mattress collected. And that happens at the same time as the delivery. So again, where a lot of retailers have different couriers going and doing this, and thinking about these are large trucks, they both have driver crews in there, it's petrol, it's everything else. We're removing that. We're going, actually, when our driver comes or team comes and delivers your new mattress, we'll take your old one away. And not only will we take your old one away, but we'll bag it there and then. So that means that we're protecting that mattress so we can take it back to our factory, and then we can recycle it. So we have 100% landfill avoidance. So we break it all down, and it either gets put into wall installation or used for energy and fuel, etc. So that's been a really powerful thing for us to have a solution that minimizes our impact on the environment. And we've maintained that service during the pandemic. And almost no other courier could do that. And via GFS and our final mile courier, while everyone else wouldn't go across the threshold, if a customer was willing, we would still complete that service. Or if the customer wants to bring it to the bottom step of their house, we would also do it. So that's been a really powerful piece. And overall, with everything we've done on customer comms and messaging and quality of service, we do now have what I would call, a standout delivery experience. Now, we had a hiccup when we migrated courier, but that was an operational hiccup where we lost some mileage on Trustpilot, but we're absolutely building that now because we have the SOPs in place, we have the relationship and process and tech in place that mean we now can build upon the delivery services we've already got in place. And we do have plans for several more delivery services. The important thing, though, is to always understand your customer. Don't look at the macro data in isolation, but look at your customer. And we know if we put too many delivery options at the checkout, will overwhelm the customer and they'll drop out and go somewhere else. It simplifies it. So a really critical part of what we do, again, with GFS is going, what's the market standard at the moment? People using checkout, how are they leveraging it? And understanding how do we display delivery? Because even if you have even just 4 delivery services, it's really hard for a customer to go, well, I want a nominated day, but I want the removal, or but I want it on the weekend. So actually being able to demonstrate and display that in a way that is a friendly user interface that doesn't risk the purchase being completed is a really critical part of the journey. So it's one thing, we could throw 20 delivery services at the checkout. It's not the right thing for our customers, and that will evolve over time. We might change what options we have available. So we need that platform and tech capability to swap that out without it becoming a huge headache for the business. And that's something we're really doing on test and learn. What are the right services?
Quick question. When you had you said you went through a couple of partners, delivery partners, did GFS help you having that conversation that you weren't happy with their service and that you were moving on? Did they make your life easier there?
So absolutely. Now I'm not afraid of tough conversation with the couriers if I think they're not performing. But the nice part of this is, there's a couple of things here. One is that GFS don't just have Eve on a courier; they have multiple retailers on a courier. So for us, it would be a buy, see, and never kind of situation. Whereas the GFS are going, we're moving one retailer. So often there might not be a huge impact to that courier versus if it was just us doing it, because then it's a relationship break. Whereas they might not feel as impacted when GFS are going, but we're going to keep some volume with you because you're working on these accounts, but this account needs something else. So that helps. And then, as much as I appreciate being introduced as a final mile expert, and I've spent many, many years now, literally with all the major two-person couriers on the floor at 2 a.m. in the morning, watching the trunking, all that, but I can't compete with the combined knowledge of GFS. My account manager was a driver himself. He's been an account manager for several big couriers, and it really helps to have that level of industry knowledge and experience. So for us, absolutely. So when we are looking, and we actually did benchmark our two-person courier only 6 months ago, when we started to have operational challenges and went, look, we think you're the right courier. You've got all the volume and capacity, and you've got all the desire to grow. You're not quite getting it right now. And so we did to kind of mitigate the risk, we did a mini tender and we looked at the market, and GFS led that, came back with the pricing, and they also came back with the pros and cons. So, hey, Steve, you could get, a 20% discount here, but, if your forecast was 20% variance, they wouldn't be able to support that because they don't have the capacity. So bringing that back into me to make an informed decision was really, really critical. And I'm not going to compete with some of the vast experience of the GFS team, particularly as I haven't driven a truck before either. Here we go. So it's probably a good segue actually into operational planning and contingency. Who knew? So forecasting, as I mentioned, with any courier, they'll of course make best endeavors to support your business, but often, they will hold you to your forecast. And if you are too far away from that forecast, then unfortunately your customer has to suffer. Now, post-pandemic, there has been such a spike in retailers shifting online or just having new e-retailers coming to the market that the final mile courier network is still quite overloaded and struggling for capacity. So what we've had to make sure that we can do is leverage GFS's bigger relationship with these couriers. So again, going back to that part of, are we the only person with that courier or not? So with GFS, it's almost never the case. So if we needed to share capacity with another retailer in the area, then GFS can work with the final mile courier to make that happen. We can consolidate sometimes if we have one-person, two-person deliveries, which are different trucks, and actually the volume isn't quite where we thought it would be, we can consolidate it onto one truck. And then also, GFS have some of their own asset-based trucks for particularly the small parcel couriers. So if we go over and the small parcel courier can't handle that themselves, GFS have trucks that can come in on a daily basis, sweep up that volume, and directly eject it into the courier hub. So the benefit of GFS isn't just that they've got kind of economies of scale. So they've got the power of multiple retailers, including you, to negotiate and have influence with the courier. But they've also got their own asset-based vehicles that, when things do go a bit, bit to the wire, that they can come in and save the day when possible and mop up that volume. Because what's really important is when you go into peak periods, whether it's Black Friday, whether it's summer sales for us, and we're in that now, that we don't allow forecasting to be the do or die for the customer experience, because it just can't be. Couriers have to find the flexibility and the volume to support now, because even though customers might be getting a discount, they still expect the quality of service. That's my problem as the COO to handle, and they see it as my problem as the customer, me as the COO to handle that problem. So with forecasting, while we do share our data on a continuous basis with GFS, the other thing GFS do is they look at our volume and our history. They're a strategic thought partner, so they know where we're going. Excuse me. And they'll support and give us proposed forecasts where required as well. Hey, Steve, does this feel about right to you? Because that's sometimes the hardest thing to do, is to get that right and in the right format for the couriers to digest.
Just have a question. Does mattresses have a peak season? Do you have peak? I'm trying to think when your peak would be.
Less so. So, I mean, Cyber Weekend has always been, as for many industries, an important part. But because mattresses is sadly is the case, a discount-driven product category. So, if you go online looking for a mattress, most places will offer anywhere between 20 and 45% discount. There's always a good, consistent level of volume. And for us, there are, with summer sales, there are a couple of times, Boxing Day and kind of Cyber Weekend, there are a few key points of the year where we'll see an increase in volume, but that's just proportionate to the market, where more people are in market for a deal. It's not that, November's the time to change your mattress, for sure. But good question. But definitely, yeah, we're driven by, and that's actually a really important part of that, is we're driven by our promotional and pricing mechanics. So that's why it's really important to have that level of conversation with your logistics partner to convert your sales forecast into a delivery forecast, so that they can then, because for us, if you think about, if you were selling, oh goodness gracious, kitchen roll, if you go over that volume by 20% as a retailer, it doesn't really matter because it's quite small. If you go over by 20, 30% with mattresses and bed frames, you need 2, 3, 4 more trucks. So actually the incremental variance, it's a lot harder for Eve with our size of book of product than it is for small retailers where you can just chuck that on the end of the truck. It's very different. And then identifying risk, we've talked about that in terms of preventative tendering. So actually where we're seeing issues in the courier network, we're already practically going, right, do you have another courier on your books that could take this if performance gets to set indicators? And that's been a really important part, because then the final mile courier knows we have options. GFS are using their leverage to support on those conversations when required, but equally we know if we need to push the button and switch to a different courier, all we need to do is get the account set up, agree the collection schedule, share a forecast, sign off the rates. It's not that complicated, and we're switched. So having that ability to see the risk as it's materializing, and then agree where the cutoff point is, and then having the plan B in place. Not many retailers can do that without having to have a whole tender process directly with all the couriers, and then doing all of the tech exploration, which can take months. So for us, again, having that risk mitigation and proactive identification is so important. And then I'm not going to labor this point on non-intensive courier migration, because I've already referenced it. But GFS doing the heavy lifting is critical, and not only carrier migration but carrier changes. So post Brexit, what a nightmare for all of us, and being able to understand, when we're shipping to Ireland, kind of what information do we need to transmit. Actually, GFS give us the playbook. We send the data they need, and then they are working to the carrier's whims on what the changes have been and have been required. And it's not the carrier's fault, it's regulations, and the government's been working all this out. But having GFS be able to lead us through that in quite a difficult time, we are a retailer that's managed to continue to deliver to Ireland, whereas many haven't. They've gone, it's too complicated, we're going to stop delivering. And again, I really do credit our GFS relationship by maintaining that sales channel when it has been really complicated to do, because the headache hasn't really been with Eve. And then pandemic impacts. I know some of us have done it to death, and I think we're all trying to look ahead and move forwards. But I have to touch on it to kind of, because we all know the pandemic was a terrible time, but there will be future disruptions. Like, we're not done. The stability that we have now at the moment, it's not that stable, but in final mile, there'll be further disruptions. There'll be situations that occur that mean that what we had as a playbook won't work, at least for a period of time. So it's good to reflect and go, as retailers, have we taken the lens of the pandemic? Have we codified them? So no matter what the next disruption is, we know what we're going to be doing in those circumstances. So start with delivery services and going, right, do we have the available delivery services to turn on or off, depending on the context of what disruption might occur? And we do, again, with GFS checkout and the systems in place, we have the ability to flex in and out of those services. On contact-free delivery, this still is quite important for a lot of customers, but we were very quick, as quite a few retailers were, to get to that kind of contact-free delivery for the final mile customer, not just offering it, but really communicating it in a way across the delivery experience, where customers had the peace of mind that, if you think about it with the mattress and think, oh my goodness, they're going to try and come into my bedroom, that's terrible. Actually, it was super critical for us to be able to work via GFS with our couriers. And sometimes we'll talk to GFS, but often, as it was in this case, GFS bring us to the table with the courier. We sit down and we go, this is what needs to happen. And the couriers are incredibly responsive, because they knew the weight of the Eve account, but also combined with the wider GFS account. You're changing the narrative from, the courier telling you what they think needs to be done, so actually we understand that you're giving us the voice of the customer here. And that's also on customer comms. So we had to be really clear about the delivery services we're offering and weren't offering, and we could have done more. I look back and go, there's always more you can do, but having the ability via GFS to change all those comms, the courier texts, the emails, etc., that's really important. And sometimes retailers, including myself a few years ago, forget to review the courier comms. You go, oh, it just works and deliveries are happening. No, take your time. Every 6 months, are those comps still relevant? What is in them? What isn't in them? Are those texts too long-winded? Are you referencing the right links? You know, you've really got to keep close to this and make sure you're reviewing these touch points, because you know, we do this in CRM, in marketing teams all the time. We're looking at how do we talk to our customers. We can sometimes forget to do that in the back end and go, how are we talking to our customers for deliveries and final mile? And even exceptions, you know, when something goes wrong, how are you explaining that to the customer? And if you're just telling them it's gone wrong, it'll turn up at some point, it's not good enough. So again, with GFS, really pushing, you know, the end-to-end customer experience. Room of choice, for better or worse, and we did, and I think for better, we maintained room of choice delivery where customers wished it during the pandemic. So a really, really powerful, supportive process, because actually, in particular, what we found was when the pandemic hit, all of the local recycling centres shut down. And actually, for a customer then to try and dispose of the mattress themselves was almost impossible. So to be able to leverage our old mattress collection service when every other courier and every other partner has shut it down almost. I'm not going to say but pretty much everyone I know shut down. We're one of the only people available in the market that could still collect your old mattress while delivering your new one. And that actually, we know from customer feedback and the data we have was very beneficial for our sales and overall customer experience and NPS. And being able to maintain room of choice delivery. So we, you know, customers who are vulnerable and can't lift a, let's call it a 40 to 50 kilo mattress up flights of stairs, yeah, they're still vulnerable in the pandemic. So actually being able to support them to go, actually, you do need good sleep and you do need someone to be able to help you with that. We were still there to help vulnerable customers in that moment and go, if you're willing, but we'll wear all the PPE and everything else, we can still deliver that service. And I'm very proud of that, because those customers really needed somewhere to turn to that could help them have that mattress they desperately needed, particularly when you think about people who were moving to bubbles and therefore were moving to a house that didn't have a mattress for them. And you know, we were there to support that huge kind of upheaval in people's lives. And you think it's just mattresses, but actually sometimes mattresses are a lot more than just that. They allow families to stay together and support each other through a horrible time. And then moving out of the pandemic, it's looking at the post-pandemic world, and there's been lots of research already on this and going, what are customer expectations now coming out of the pandemic? So in the pandemic, convenience became irrelevant for a lot of people. It was deliver it whenever, I'm at home all the time, I've got nowhere to go. And that made it a lot easier for retailers to manage on time and full deliveries. And if you got it wrong, it didn't really matter, the customer was there the next day anyway. We're coming back to that world now with hybrid working. So convenience is back in, and customers are demanding time slots and nominated days. And not only that, but they're also demanding more on sustainability and going, you know, how can you be a sustainable brand for us? And that's great that we've got it in terms of consolidated shipments, but you know, we've got to always think about the fact that customers are purchasing quite a lot of things online now. So how do you become the frictionless retailer that's not bombarding them with emails, it's not overloading them and confusing them, so that actually when they do have 10 deliveries from 10 retailers, you're the least painful one. And that's where we're working on. How do you make it a convenient, frictionless journey for the customer while maintaining the quality of service at the over the threshold? So business benefits, I promise I'll start to try and wrap up as best I can. I've talked a lot about the GFS and Eve developments, but what I haven't talked about is, well, does that actually help the business in any kind of financial or customer way that you can tangibly put your fingers on? So yes. So our premium delivery services, so beyond the standard delivery, we've seen the uptake of those increase to over 30%. So almost a third of our customers are opting for a premium delivery service. And we're only scratching the surface of what we can do there in terms of optimizing by checkout, getting the right balance of services. And I talked about that's an iteration game. You don't get it right first time. You don't get it right by reading a document. You've got to test and learn what's the right price point, what's the right offering, what's the right user interface. We're a public business, so I have to be very careful what I say because my CEO will fire me. So I'll phrase it this way. We've had a significant contribution via delivery service revenue in the many, many hundreds of thousands of pounds per annum. And again, still scratching the surface, more we can do there to get the right pricing, get the right offering to our customers. But if you think about that, that is a huge incremental revenue stream for any business. And no one should neglect the fact that delivery revenue should be factored into overall revenue and really thought about as a strategic lever. So when do you use that for promotions, like a free mattress removal? When do you, I think sometimes you can become quite siloed in logistics and you think, I'm just doing me and delivering a great experience. You go, no, you're delivering business revenue in many ways, and you're delivering conversion rate on the website, and you're reducing delivery dropout rates. And that's the next point I'm making here, which is we've seen a reduction in cart abandonment by 30%. So over the years with GFS checkout, the people getting to the delivery page and then going, now I'm leaving, that's reduced by 30%. And that's really important because this is the battlefield now. A lot of customers get to checkout, and that's where they'll stop and they'll try the retailers, and they'll see what offerings are there, what the pricing is, and it becomes part of the overall decision process. So for us to reduce that delivery page cart abandonment rate, that's revenue, it's a lot of money. And that's only by getting it right, by making the customer feel at ease with the service they're going to get, and it's predictable, and it's understandable, it's at the right price. So that is something we never take for granted, and we track this every week, and we go, what's the cart abandonment this week, and has anything changed that we need to look at? So reviewing that data. And with our GFS partnership and the couriers involved, we've consistently achieved an on-time in full of over 97%. Now it's higher with small parcel couriers where exceptions are quite low. But you've got to remember a large percentage, losing the ability to speak, a large percentage of our deliveries are large parcel, which are harder to make sure the customer's at home, that you've got the whole thing, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not happy with 97% entirely, but it's pretty darn good given the context of where we are at the moment, and it can only go up. I have referenced about customer support and internal teams, but again, to scale, how to phrase this, as a scale-up business, if you want to continue to scale effectively and in a quite a fast fashion, you need to make sure that your teams can handle that additional volume without huge additional complexity. So talking about the systems integrations we have, they're consistent and streamlined. So if I double the revenue, the volume going through the network, it's not double the tech effort, it's not double the customer service effort. These things have economies of scale. And that's been a real benefit to me, which is that I've not had to triple the size of the customer support team or the operations team to deliver the business growth. And I foresee moving forward as we continue to scale as a business, that's still the case, that we can scale the front end of the business a lot quicker than the back end of the business. And then the other benefit, which we're working through actually in terms of how do we really quantify this, and it's one of the next steps with GFS. We know we've had a huge reduction in environmental impact. The thousands of shipments that are now going consolidated rather than separate. The old mattress collection at the point of delivery. We are really optimizing our touch points and only putting trucks on the road and deliveries to customers where they're needed. And in a world where we know that the ops teams of every business can have a huge impact on the footprint that an overall retailer has, this is a core focus, and will continue to be so for our business.
Can I just ask that? In when a lorry turns up with my mattress, is it just mattresses in that lorry, or there potentially other things in there as well with other businesses, obviously, not just
it's a very good question. So while we are looking at potentially using dedicated delivery vehicles due to our scale in some areas of the UK, at the moment we aren't doing that. So absolutely. So when the driver crew turns up and opens the back of their truck, they'll have multiple retailers' products in the back of it, and they will deliver your Eve in a box, and then they will bag your old mattress and load that and unload it. So again, when you think about route planning and understanding our requirements, the drivers have to know how to present themselves to the customer, that they need to bag that mattress, take a picture of that collection, load it back onto the truck. Because when we launched this, there was a couple of issues with, we don't have space in the truck, and we very quickly went back to the courier and went, no, you're offering the service, only do these services at least the second half of the day, because obviously you need to empty some of your deliveries before you can take huge unrolled mattresses. So it took a bit of teething pains, but yeah, that's how they work, and they do it consistently well now.
That must be great for the environment, though, that final mile, whereas before maybe a lorry was going to different parts of, say, London, for example, just to deliver the odd mattress, whereas now I guess it's just going to a part of London and delivering a whole host of different items to different people. It's much better, isn't it?
And that's one of the key things that Courier's looking at now is what they call collaborative networks. So how do they route plan using similar product profiles from different retailers? And so actually, fair play to the couriers here, where they're really building their route planning based on the product portfolio they've got in their network as well. I really hope, let me see. There you go. We've all got to the last slide. So what's next? So the first thing, there's been a huge amount of achievements and deliverables, not just keeping going during the pandemic, but also just the whole transformation of Eve from a single courier point of solution all the way through to this multi-carrier solution with services associated. But we're not done, and no retailer can sit on their laurels and say we're done and we've got a great experience and the logistics section is complete. We're all iterating and evolving. So for us, there's a few areas we're looking at. The first one I'll talk about is leveraging data. So for anyone who's listening who has large parcel deliveries, like in small parcel world, there's a lot that can still be done. It's really optimized on data and reporting and optimizations, etc. Whereas in large parcel, those couriers are a little bit further behind when it comes to how they can report and how they can automate some of their processes. So for us, we're working with GFS to look at automation that entire journey. So that's through to customer reception. So if the driver runs out of time, or they find there's a damaged parcel or whatever it might be, that we're automating that flow that's customer friendly, not just going, sorry, we're not delivering today, you'll get it when you get it. And we already made some headroom there in terms of now there's triggers that then automate the courier, the final mile courier, to call the customer to book in a new slot. But then we're also looking at stuff internally, for instance, claims. Now, for any ops team, they'll know that trying to claim with the logistics partner is quite hard because they make it hard. But we're looking at, and we've already made huge headroom with GFS on automating some of that claims process, because when things go well, it's fantastic. But even a small percentage of exceptions can be a huge cost exposure to any retailer, and we're really working on minimizing that, as we all know that the cost pressures that many retailers are under at the moment. The next piece for us is looking at the over the threshold, and again, when we have a large percentage of our deliveries going into the customer's bedroom, we want to make sure we're doing it in a way that the customer is really comfortable with, but feels they're talking to Eve and not to a random courier. So that's for us, the courier understanding, what they should be explaining to the customer about the mattress, offering the relevant support, whether it's removing the packaging, help us put it on the bed, explaining the product and what's going to happen in the next 7 days and how it's going to inflate over a few hours and all that kind of stuff. So how do we really make the courier that extended part of our brand? And that is something I haven't seen that much of. Most couriers turn up to your front door, or they'll drop something in your hallway and then they'll leave. We're going to take it to that next level of they are us, that the drivers will understand Eve, and we're spending a lot of time now trying to engage with the drivers in the depots and the hubs so they understand Eve as well. So they feel equipped and empowered to promote the brand and to be part of our brand. Then we're looking at, I'll touch on the final point now, which is sustainability. And I've talked about it through the entire webinar, but for us, while we have made progress on the touch points and all mattress collection, there's more to do. And it's really hard in large parcel where the electric vehicles, for instance, aren't quite there. You don't get the mileage when you're driving a 7.5 tonner or an Arctic around the country. So for us, we're still being the kind of the drumbeat there, working with GFS and the couriers to find the innovative solutions and try and bring them to market. It's quite slow at the moment, and it's really hard to get the right solutions, but we are pushing and learning from our couriers on that. But then also looking at, again, the route optimization. Where can we actually dedicate a transport run, Louisa, you mentioned earlier, rather than having that through a shared network? And there's a lot of stuff we're doing on route plan analysis at the moment, which normally is the courier's job, but actually we're doing it with the courier, going, right, show us the heat spots where our deliveries are. What can we do here to optimize those deliveries and make sure we're doing everything we can, particularly in large parcel where there's more emissions and there's 2 drivers, not one. Well, a crew of 2, not 1. 2 people can't drive the truck, to optimize that entire experience. And of course, there's lots more on top of that. But in terms of data and sustainability and quality of service over the threshold, that's where we're going to be really focusing on over the next 12 to 18 months.
Wow, that has been absolutely fascinating. I've learned so much. Thank you so much, Steve. Really, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you to everyone here who has also listened in and put forward their questions. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for all the questions. If you have got any that you'd like to put forward, feel free to email support@internetretailing-events.com, and we will make sure that you get the answers that you're looking for. But anyway, I just want to wrap up by once again just saying to Steve, thank you so much. Brilliant. I've learned so much, and I think everyone here will have done so as well. On a completely different note, I'm very excited just to remind everyone that we have launched IRX at London's Excel this autumn. That'll be taking place on the 12th and 13th of October. We're really, really excited about this new show. It's going to be a really, really good one, and it's alongside some of our sister events, DTX and UCX. So it's going to be a big one. The registration for that will be going live this month, but you can register your interest on the website, which is internetretailing-expo.com. So on that note, I'm going to let everyone get back to whatever they were doing before. And thank you, Steve. Hopefully see you around.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Louise.
Thank you. Bye-bye.